$3 million mansion. Carlin Bates and Evan Stewart's massive house purchase shocks fans. For months, whispers had surrounded Evan Stewart and Carlin Bates, a young couple known for their love, their faith, and the quiet grace that carried them through life's storms. Their journey had always been rooted in simplicity, but this time something different was unfolding. A decision that would leave everyone stunned. In the heart of Tennessee, tucked between rolling hills and soft sunlight, a house stood waiting. It wasn't just another property, it was a vision. A grand, white brick home with sprawling gardens, wide glass windows, and the kind of peace that seemed to live in its walls. Carlin had seen the listing one late night when she couldn't sleep. She had scrolled past dozens of homes before her heart suddenly stopped. There it was, the one that felt almost meant for them. A price tag that read $3 million didn't scare her at first. It felt more like a dream, one too big to be true. When Evan saw it, he smiled, that calm, reassuring smile he always wore when life tested them. He didn't see the money. He saw Carlin's eyes light up, the hope she hadn't felt in months. The idea of raising their children in a place that finally felt stable, that was priceless to him. They decided to visit. And from the moment they stepped through the heavy wooden doors, everything changed. The air inside was warm and quiet. Light poured through tall windows, touching the marble floors with a glow that felt almost divine. Carlin walked from room to room, her fingers brushing over walls, her heart trembling. In that silence, memories of their past flashed. Their tiny first apartment, nights of laughter and struggle, days when medical worries shadowed their joy, and the times they prayed not for wealth, but for strength. Standing in the middle of the vast living room, she whispered softly, "It's beautiful, Evan, but it's too much." Evan didn't answer right away. He looked around, imagining their daughter running through the halls, hearing music echo from Carlin's guitar, and the warmth of family dinners filling every corner. Then gently he said, "Maybe it's not too much. Maybe it's exactly what God had planned all along." The number, 3 million, loomed large. Friends said it was too soon, too risky, too big. But for them it wasn't about luxury. It was about peace. About taking a leap of faith together. Trusting the same God who had carried them through storms before. That night, they sat on their porch, stars spread across the Tennessee sky. No cameras, no spotlight, just two hearts whispering the same prayer. If this is meant to be, open the door. Neither of them knew it then, but that prayer was about to change everything. The offer they would soon make, the sacrifices they would face, and the storm that would follow. All of it would test their faith, their strength, and their love like never before. Days turned into weeks after Evan and Carlin made their offer. The number, $3 million, echoed in their minds like a distant thunder. They had prayed about it, talked about it, and finally taken the leap. But behind the brave smiles and Instagram posts, there was a quiet storm brewing. Carlin tried to stay calm. Every morning, she woke up early, opened her Bible, and whispered the same words. "Lord, if this is your will, guide us through it." She smiled for their daughter, sang songs in the kitchen, and kept faith alive. Even when worry crept in like a shadow, Evan worked longer hours, taking extra shifts, trying to balance dreams with responsibility. He never said it out loud, but Carlin could see it in his eyes, the weight he carried. He wanted to give her everything, but he was terrified of losing what they had already built. Their families noticed the change too. Some were happy for them, proud that they had come this far. Others quietly wondered if they were taking on too much, too soon. A $3 million house wasn't just a home. It was a commitment, a challenge that could reshape their entire future. Still, Carlin held on to the dream. She remembered the first time she and Evan walked through that front door. The peace she felt, the sense that God was present in every corner of that house. She believed that faith didn't always mean comfort. Sometimes it meant walking into the unknown. But as the days went by, cracks began to show. Paperwork delays. Unexpected costs. A sudden health scare that brought back memories of Carlin's old struggles. Nights when the house seemed farther away than ever. Evan sat in silence one evening, staring at the financial documents spread across the kitchen table. Carlin sat beside him, tears quietly filling her eyes. They didn't argue. They didn't shout. They just sat there, holding hands, understanding the fear neither wanted to say out loud. In that silence, Evan finally spoke. I don't care about the house, Carlin. I just care about you. If it's not meant to be, we'll let it go. She shook her head slowly. But what if it is meant to be? What if this is just the test before the blessing? Outside, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier, tapping against the windows like the rhythm of their hearts. No one knew what would happen next. The house still waited. Their offer still hung in the air. But between faith and fear, Evan and Carlin stood hand in hand, facing a future they couldn't yet see, only believe in. Weeks passed. The waiting felt endless. Each day brought new questions, new numbers, new prayers whispered in the quiet corners of their home. The $3 million dream was beginning to feel more like a mountain, one too heavy to climb. Carlin tried to stay positive. She shared small moments online, laughter with their daughter, coffee with Evan, but behind those smiles, there was exhaustion. Nights without sleep. Days filled with uncertainty. Then one morning the phone rang. It was the real estate agent. The seller had accepted their offer. Carlin froze. For a moment she didn't speak, her eyes wide, her heart racing. Evan reached for her hand. It's done, he asked softly. The voice on the other end said, yes. The house is yours. Tears filled Carlin's eyes. She dropped her phone and covered her face, overwhelmed by emotion. Evan pulled her close, holding her tightly as if afraid to let go. The dream they had prayed for was finally real. But even as joy filled the room, reality soon followed. There were new responsibilities now. Taxes, renovations, endless expenses that came with the kind of luxury they had never known. Carlin began to feel the pressure of expectation. People whispered, $3 million? How can they afford that? Evan heard the rumors too, but he stayed calm. Let them talk, he said quietly. They don't see what we see. The day they finally got the keys, the whole family came to see the house. Laughter echoed in the hallways, little feet ran across polished floors, and Carlin stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed by gratitude. She remembered every moment that had led them here. The fear, the doubt, the nights she cried and the mornings she refused to give up. She had learned that faith wasn't just about believing when things were easy. It was about trusting when everything seemed impossible. As the sun set that evening, Carlin stood on the balcony overlooking the Tennessee hills. The wind moved gently through her hair as she whispered, "Thank you." Evan joined her, his arm wrapping around her shoulders. "This isn't just a house," he said softly. "It's a reminder of how far we've come and who brought us here." Down below, their daughter played in the garden, her laughter floating up through the golden air. For the first time in months, everything felt still, peaceful, whole. But life, as they would soon learn, doesn't stay still for long. Behind the beauty of their new beginning, a new test was already waiting. One that would challenge everything they believed in. The first few weeks in the new house felt like a dream. Sunlight danced across the marble floors every morning, and laughter filled the rooms every night. Friends came by, the family visited, and everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. But beneath the smiles, something fragile was beginning to crack. The financial pressure was heavier than they expected. Bills arrived faster than paychecks. The renovation costs doubled, then tripled. Every decision came with a new sacrifice. Evan tried to handle it quietly, carrying the burden so Carlin wouldn't have to. But she noticed. She always did. At night, when the world grew quiet, she would find him sitting alone in the kitchen, the glow of his laptop reflecting in tired eyes. He wasn't just checking numbers. He was counting peace, day by day, trying to keep it all from slipping away. Carlin's own health began to falter again. The stress, the sleepless nights, the constant worry. It all came rushing back like a shadow she thought she had left behind. There were days she couldn't even climb the stairs without feeling dizzy. Yet she smiled for her daughter, for Evan, for the family who believed she was stronger than she felt. Rumors began to spread again. Online voices questioned their choices. Some said they were chasing luxury. Others claimed they had gone too far. The noise was loud, but the silence inside the house was louder. One evening, after everyone was asleep, Carlin stood alone in the living room. She looked around at the home that once felt like a promise. It was beautiful, but suddenly it felt heavy. Too big, too quiet, too far from the simplicity she once knew. Tears fell without warning. She whispered into the stillness, "God, did we go too far?" In the dark, she heard the faint sound of a guitar upstairs. Evan playing softly, the same song he used to sing when things were hard. The sound wrapped around her heart like a reminder. This wasn't about money or walls or space. It was about love, and the faith that built it. The next morning, Evan found her sitting by the window. She looked at him and smiled through tired eyes. "We'll be okay," she said. "Even if we lose everything, we'll still have us." He nodded. And for the first time in weeks, they prayed together. Not for success, not for comfort, but for peace in whatever came next. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the sound of their prayer across the hills. The dream wasn't gone. It was just changing shape, teaching them once again that sometimes blessings come wrapped in battles. Months passed. The storm that once felt endless began to fade, slowly, quietly, like rain lifting from the morning sky. Evan and Carlin had faced what felt impossible: financial strain, health scares, doubt, and fear. Yet somehow, through every tear and every sleepless night, they found each other again. Not in grand gestures, but in the smallest moments: a shared smile, a whispered prayer, a quiet hand held through the dark. The house, once a symbol of luxury, had become something different. It was no longer about the price or the space or the way people talked about it online. It was about home. A place where love was tested and still remained. Where faith was questioned but never lost. One evening, the sun began to set behind the Tennessee hills, casting gold across the living room. Carlin sat by the window, her daughter asleep in her arms. The light touched her face softly, and for the first time in a long time, she felt peace. Evan walked in and stopped for a moment, watching her. He didn't say anything, he didn't have to. He just smiled and she smiled back. No words were needed. The silence between them spoke more than any promise ever could. They had learned that dreams don't always come easy. That sometimes God answers prayers not with instant miracles, but with lessons, deep ones that shape the soul. As the evening grew quiet, Carlin whispered softly, "We didn't lose anything, Evan. We found everything." He took her hand. "Everything that really matters," he said. Outside, the lights of their home glowed softly against the night, not as a sign of wealth, but as a reminder of endurance, faith, and love that refused to give up. And somewhere deep within that grand, beautiful house that once frightened them with its price and its size, there was now something far greater: peace. Not the kind that money could ever buy, but the kind that comes when two hearts decide to trust, even when the world tells them not to. Dizzy in the end, the $3 million house wasn't the blessing. The real blessing was the journey that taught them what love truly means. Red Heart.